heart in the right place is a target to get ripped out. And what I mean by that is sometimes people will put a stipulation, especially on men, as to what our role is supposed to be, not only as protectors and providers in the most basic sense, but having to be especially generous or treating others in a particular light, yet not being treated in the light that they themselves would like to be treated. And we've seen this, and most of us have gone through this firsthand on some level, whether it's with personal relationships, as fathers, as employees, you name it, it happens. So generally outside of maybe our own circle, our own brethren of people that we hang out with for hobbies or just in a societal sense, we don't always get to have our heart where we would want it to be. And that's kind of unfortunate. And this is why you have these sentiments of nice guys finish last, because their heart's in the right place. They're trying to do all the right things. And there's nothing wrong with that, provided that this is through their channels of manhood and not what they've been indoctrinated to believe. And this goes to the quote unquote love languages. You have particular acts of service, affection, all of these things that can define how somebody wants to say, this is how I express myself. Okay, that's fine. That means you get to put your heart in that particular place. But a lot of times what happens with men is you have to have your heart where somebody else wants it. Well, when somebody knows exactly where that heart is and how it's beating and all of those things that are associated with your emotional circulatory system, if you will, it's an easy target to get ripped out. And this is proof positive through divorce rates. 80% are initiated by women. This is proof positive through DNA tests. 30% of men are failing DNA tests. 30%. This is proof positive through the rates of, and maybe this is a little bit different, but 30% of men 18 to 30 have been reported to have been sexless or are virgins at this current state. Like this is crazy. So there's a standard that's put out there that we have to be a particular way, or there's no rewards. There's a standard that says you have to be at a particular level of everything, which I understand to a degree, but we're getting to a point where we're going to watch the erosion of the standard, maybe Western family as we know it, because you see the MGTOW movement, men going their own way because they've just said enough with this rhetoric that men have to be these certain things. And you're seeing a divide also from the feminists that we don't need men. Men are trash. If we do away with all men, the world would be a better place. Well, how do we come together to raise proper children in structured environments? The advocacy should be that children are raised in two-parent homes. Studies show that they are better off in two-parent homes. Studies show that they're actually better off with a single father raising them rather than a single mother. There's a lot of things that go along with that, but I will say that that's kind of, I think that that's kind of a leaning statistic, because for so long children have just been awarded custody to mothers. So we may not have seen the full failings of what single father homes may be. But as long as that's the only data that we have to support what's going on right now, we still have to look at just those facts and figures and then, adjust that as time goes on. But again, nice guys finish last. There's so many places where you see cheating. Now, cheating rates are very similar. 28% of men had reported cheating and 24% of women had reported cheating. So it's very close. It's not like guys are just these sex machines that are just out there just looking to defile all women, and all women are just sitting at home either waiting to be cheated on or waiting to be somebody's partner in cheating. It's closer than we think. So when we look at something like your heart being in the right place, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a moral compass. What I'm saying is, if men are from Mars and women are from Venus, that means we are two different beings, and that's okay. But that also means that our hearts may anatomically be in a different place. Emotionally, our heads are in a different space. We should be allowed to be who we are, and that way we are our genuine selves. We're not bent and molded and formed into something that isn't its natural state, because when that happens, ultimately that it's like spring loading something. It's always pushing against what it's being formed into. And this is where you see this MGTOW explosion, where men have been told you have to be this, you have to be a nice guy, you have to open the doors, you do all of that stuff, and then you get married and you have to put, what is it, a percentage of your annual salary on a ring, which was created by the diamond industry to sell rings to men for their women. But then you have currently what, a 50% at least divorce rate. And like I said, 80% of that is initiated by women. For whatever reason, that's fine. But then the laws now, 90% of alimony is awarded to women. These are things where your heart gets stripped out for being that nice guy, for doing all the things society told you. And then the reward at the end of the day is so many men now are experiencing a higher self-deletion rate or ending of life rate. Although I will say that women have a higher attempt rate, but men are succeeding in that. And a lot of it is because there's no resources for mental health. There's no resources legally. There's no resources in a lot of ways. So you tell a man from a very young age, take care of women, be good, do all the right things, and then you lose it all. And then you continue to lose half, if not more, through child support and alimony. And some of these alimony stories are nightmares. There are women collecting alimony from an ex-husband who are refusing to marry a long-term partner now solely on the premise that it will stop the alimony from coming in from their ex-husband. That's criminal. It's fraud. And this is what I mean when I'm talking about getting your heart ripped out. Talk about leaving somebody with feeling like there is no way to get out of drowning, because the average man is making $52,000, and that's the average white male. The average black male, $42,000, and the average Hispanic, I believe, is $38,000. So there's not a whole lot of money being made, and in this climate with gas and groceries, what they are, wow. And you're still expected to provide for your children when you have them, if you have them, on said vacation or visitations. So again, having your heart in the right place, I think that we see women are allowed to say, hey, I need to keep my heart guarded. I need to have it protected. I don't want to get hurt. Men should be adapting and adopting to that same ideology. And that's good for all humans. And although we can't always change what somebody else is going to do for us, we can change how we adapt into what we know historically has been happening. Look at your father, look at your friends, look at your neighbors. There's a lot of men who are experiencing many of the things that I just talked about. It doesn't mean you have to run for the hills and never get married or never have children, but it does mean you need to protect yourself. It does mean legally start using channels that are going to allow that the little bit of leniency, and it's getting better, I would say, but that you understand exactly where you are going to fit into the system, what your possibilities of any sort of success are in the system, and that you are vetting a proper partner, somebody who you don't have to try to shape them, just like they shouldn't be trying to shape you. Yes, if you're in that and that's what you want with that person, then you definitely will conform for each other. It's not a submission control game from either end. So being told that you have to be these certain things, and unfortunately, a lot of guys hear it from not only their father, who is probably beholden to an old standard of dating. So their notion of what dating is and treating women is rather outdated. So as well from the mother. So a young man has often both parents telling him certain ways that he's supposed to act and behave when it comes to treating women. Now, I agree with some of that. Like there are just levels of just being a polite and good person. But if I were raising my son, I would tell him, open the door for men as well as women. It doesn't have to mean it's romantically connected. It just means it's being a good person. So the mother is often going to speak from her emotions in the way that she wants to be treated. Well, that's kind of a setup, because how a man is able to treat a woman in his emotional capacity and how a woman wants to be treated will often be two different things. So these messages probably should be coming from well-grounded men who are able to see beyond certain things. Then you have the potential girlfriend and or wife side. Well, the father of this young lady is going to want his daughter being treated extremely well. So now this young man has to come in extra buttoned up. And that mother is also going to have certain expectations for her daughter, as she should, but it leans heavily on the man. Now, it doesn't mean that young women can't be raised or haven't been raised to be, I'm going to use the word helpmate or wife or things like that, but I think it's a little bit more fleeting. And I'm all for people having their freedoms, all people, whether across all boards. But in this case, if we're talking gender, we want to explore asking a man to stay in a traditional sense, being a protector provider, if he's not getting traditional benefits from said young women who are coming in with different ideologies as to what they want. It's all perfectly fine. But then again, we can't ask men to keep their heart in the same place if it potentially has a higher risk, a more increased risk of getting ripped out. Getting ripped out not only for the previous things that I mentioned, but just getting ripped out for being body shamed. And yes, men get body shamed for height, for endowment. Those are the two places that people immediately will attack a man, for his physical size, as far as his stature, and as far as his endowment. And a lot of times people don't even know what the endowment is, but if he has a certain mentality, then it's called small dick energy or little dick energy. So, but if we reverse those roles, we can't say anything, or aren't allowed to say anything, or are put in our place if something is brought up about the bodies of women. Now, there historically has probably been way more shaming of women's bodies than there have been of men's. I get that. But what's the search here? What's the end game? Are we just going to continue to say this is where I want superiority as opposed to equality? Because we're getting an overcorrection. And I believe in a lot of ways this is why society does not want to see a lot of equality where it comes to matters of race, religion, nationality, things like that, because the people who have enjoyed the power so long are afraid that, wow, if we give some people equal rights, they're going to do to us what we've been doing to them this entire time. So I understand the voice that a lot of women are coming with, but I'm still going to speak to men. Guys, you have to protect your heart. And the way you protect your heart is through your brain. Do that through logic and stoicism. Don't react to the emotional. Don't react to the attacks on your person. Continue to find a goal, Work on that. And you can have multiple goals. You can be going to school, you can be going to the gym, you can be learning an instrument, you can be learning a language, you can be getting your passport, you can be doing a whole lot of things. But stay on those purposes. Do not chase these needs to show people what a wonderful guy you are. Do your work, and the people who recognize it and understand and who were raised to know what a good man is will find you. But you're not going to find them by flashing money. You're not going to find them by acting like you have money to flash. You're not going to find them or keep them by either one of those, or by acting like somebody you're not just to get a certain reaction. That's temporary. What we're looking for is permanent, and not permanent outside of ourselves, but permanent within ourselves. Be a consistent person, and the rewards will come. It's when you get into these temporary pockets, we don't gain any traction. So we want to gain that traction and make sure that it propels us forward. Whether that person stays along for the ride or not is of lesser consequence. What we're talking about is building ourselves up. So I'm going to leave it at that. What are your thoughts on this? Is there something that I missed? Am I way off? Let's leave it in the comments if you have an experience that's close to this, because every man, in my estimation, has an origin story where he had his heart in the right place and got dumped for it. And I'm not saying that women haven't come in with their heart in the right place, but this isn't that space. We're talking to men because there are way more facilities, there's way more resources available that help women than there are for men right now. So we're talking in a space. But ladies, this is also for you to share with men. One, to understand yourself. And I'm not the spokesman for all men, but it also is a space to allow you share with a man you might know who needs to hear some of these things. I know there's a lot. I'm not drawing a definite line between men and women. I'm saying that there's a lot of women out there who advocate for their brothers, for their fathers, for their uncles, for their friends, for their coworkers, and they understand and see, and they know in their circles. Ladies, you know, in a lot of ways, you hear what women say, and you hear how women will operate. Now, the thing that we have to do, just like guys have to do, is you got to call out the people doing the nonsense, or at least weed them out. So we're having a clear line between just good and not good people, or good and people not making good decisions. As far as how they want to utilize or use other people, because it's rather abusive and it's leaving a lot of people jaded. And again, I reference men going their own way, not necessarily because this is a hate group towards women, but it's the culmination of guys just being fed up and saying, you know what, never mind. This is also where you're seeing things like the passport brothers, where men are saying, forget Western women. We'll just pick up and go someplace else where women are going to treat us well. That's going to be another topic, because there's been a real campaign against men going abroad. And it's ironic that it was never a problem, or at least it wasn't as big a problem when we called it mail order brides. But the fact that people are jumping on and saying that they're exploiting women and they're picking children and uneducated women to flaunt their money over, things like that. I find it ironic, because this is what hypergamy is, even here in the Western culture. Women are dating up. They want a man who makes more than them. They want a man who can provide for them and protect. These men can provide that. They're just doing it for somebody who grew up in a different country. So you want the same things, but it's just that the women there are willing to concede a more traditional experience for a lot of these men, and that's all that a lot of men are looking for. So guys, I'm going to leave it at that. I've talked longer than I thought that I would, but I thought that it was important just to jump on and share some thoughts on it. The subscriptions are very appreciated. Again, sharing the content would be awesome, and let's engage in the chats and just see where it takes us. We don't always have to agree, but let's be respectful on the platform, and I will see you guys very soon. All right.